Hi, and welcome to this episode of I've Got This Kid. I'm your host, Cherina Williams, licensed speech and language pathologist, homeschooling mom of two, wife of one. Glad to be here another day with you all. Let me tell you, this year is going by so fast. I don't know. I look up, I blink, and it's May, and here we are. So almost half of this year is over, but even if it is, I'm having a fabulous time. Despite everything that's going on around us, I can always find a little bit of hope in everything that I do in this space with you guys. And so thank you for letting me have this space with you guys. Thank you for allowing me to come into your homes and speak to you guys on everything that's speech and language and play and development and all that other fun stuff that falls in between. It's an honor. Like, I know I say it every week, but I genuinely believe that it is an honor and a privilege to be here doing what I love. And I just love this space. So this month, for the month of May, our theme is moral goodness. And let me tell you guys, I am the person on this earth who is furthest from having a halo over her head. But I also strive in some ways to be a pretty okay person, a pretty good human. And so today we're going to be talking YOLO. YOLO. YOLO is such an interesting concept. And for you guys out there that aren't sure what YOLO is, and I'm not sure if you international listeners know this term, it's a slang term, YOLO, and it means literally you only live once. You only live once. And so the concept behind you only live once is that you can make these decisions that are kind of impulsive because guess what? You only live once, right? And so you don't necessarily have to think things through. You just do it because it looks good, feels good, and you kind of roll with that. But today I'm going to talk about, is YOLO impacting our sensitivity to others? And I know, I'm not trying to be like that cloud over the fun parade because I am all about fun. I probably have a little bit too much fun sometimes, but I want to dig deeper into this mindset and this concept because you always can start acting a bit like a toddler if you're not careful with this. You only live once. But on the other side of the coin, I also feel like there's a valid argument to this concept that you only live once. You only have so much time to circle this earth. And so we want to make the most of our time living out our own personal purpose and fulfilling our own personal bucket list. So I do believe that there is some truth to the statement. I just don't necessarily endorse the impulsivity that is attached to it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so world changers, I'm warning you, this is going to be more about you than it is going to be about your sugar. But believe me, I'm going to bring sugar into the equation because we always have to keep in the forefront of our mind, world changers, that what we do, what we model is, guess what they're going to one day do and one day model. And so as I read and I read and I read and I see this term come up and I see society and social media bringing this term to the table, I just want to make sure that we're tooled up on our part and that we're not YOLOing to the point to where we're whoa-oh'd. Go from YOLO to whoa-oh. So that's where we are today. That's what we're going to talk about. So I was thinking the other day about the dynamics of a pressure cooker. Have you guys ever seen a pressure cooker in its glory? Those things are the neatest tools created for the working family who has so much going on, but you want to come home to a really good meal, but you don't want it to take 8 hours, or you want it to be done by the time you get home, whatever it is. Well, that's more of a slow cooker, but the pressure cooker, it takes pressure and it makes your food cook from what would be a very long time to a very short time. And when I think about this pressure cooker, I think about all the yummy things that I make in there, whether it's beans or stews or marinades, or, oh man, if I can tomatoes, all of that can happen in a pressure cooker, which is perfect for the pressure cooker because guess what? I want stuff to happen quick with my pressure cooker. But when I think about the pressure cooker of life, oh my gosh, tell me life is not so fast paced now. Everything is fast paced. You're living fast paced. Work is fast paced. The responsibilities at work increase. Home doesn't quit. Oh, and for the last year, most everybody was at home balancing work and sugars and keeping the house clean. The pressure, right? Like that pressure cooker, like everything's happening at once. That's how the pressure cooker works. Like everything happens at once. It doesn't have that time like you do on a stovetop to break down, but that pressure cooker just makes everything happen at once. And so when we're living in that pressure cook space, and not only is it our own personal pressure cooker, like with life, what goes on at home and what goes on at work, but then there's also the societal pressures. Oh my gosh, you click on social media and everybody is airbrushed beautiful. And I even got some airbrushed beautiful pictures. And that's not how I look every day. It's like all these things like beautification, whether it's your house or whether it's the car or whether it's the vacation and everything is beautiful and perfect. And it's more money to make things happen. Like you need more, you need all of these things, this YOLO, like you only live once. So you should be doing all these things right now in this moment. The pressure's on. And then there's the pressure for the kids to be high performers. Like if they're not talking when they come out, then they're behind. Like, oh my gosh. Or if they're not in school knowing how to divide by kindergarten, then they're behind. And it's all this stuff. But then it's the other end to where when you bring it back to home, it's also, well, if I'm not providing them the best opportunity, then I'm behind and they're behind and they can't compete. But then I'm competing to make them competitive, to be in the society to where it's nothing but pressure, but they only live once. So I want them to do everything at once. And then they have schedules that look like adult schedules, but that's a different story for a different day. We'll talk about that next week. But it's all of the pressure, and society breeds pressure. But YOLO then fits in there, but you only live once. And so you better live this stuff out. Oh my gosh. And it can dictate how we live our days and what we personally chase and what we personally value by what we're seeing, by the demands being placed on us, by the things that we love. And then let's say that gardening is our jam. Well, gardening isn't super popularized, right? And so we're pushing away from the gardening and maybe spending more time trying to attain this thing, or we're pushing away from this that makes us happy versus gravitating towards the image that we're fitting into this mold that we're competing almost with ourselves, but with a reality that's outside of ourselves that we can't necessarily dictate. And so we want to be super careful with that, because with that pressure cook, with that you only live once, the carefree attitude can also happen to the point of I'm doing all this stuff. I just want to do this thing. I don't care of the consequences. I don't care of the outcome. Or I become overwhelmed to the point with trying to keep up with this life, with this stuff, with this thing, that I am exhausted and I need some kind of outlet. And this outlet can become dangerous because it can breed, again, that toddler mentality that I was talking about, to where we become so impulsive that logic is removed from the equation. It's totally removed because we can't think these things through. We're unable to think these things through because we've moved so far from ourselves, trying to meet all of these demands, not necessarily taking out the time to decide the stuff that we genuinely value. And so that imbalance can pull us in the opposite direction and make us not only insensitive to ourselves, but also to those closest to us. Because if you're not in tune with self, world changer, then how can you be in tune with others? I've been there. And not only was I there. It took some hard decision making to get out of that space of I'm pushing and pulling in the wrong direction for all the wrong reasons to what genuinely feeds me. And yeah, I only live once, so I want to do stuff that's super important to me, not I only live once and I want to try to do all of these things to fulfill this image that I may or may not necessarily agree with. And so there's some reasons that this stuff happens, world changers. Personal dissatisfaction inwardly. This could be with life. This could be with personal goals and ambitions unmet. If these things happen, then it's easy to fall into that careless mindset, that impulsive mindset of I am not happy within, and so I'm going to do this that makes me happy. But it's only a short term this that makes me happy. And then when it's all said and done, I have to return to that. And the funniest thing, you always have to go home with yourself. And so if you're dissatisfied inwardly, no matter where you go, you're taking that dissatisfaction with you. Dissatisfaction with personal ambitions. Maybe you were the best sculptor in high school. Maybe you were the best singer. Maybe you were the best accountant, great with numbers, great with this, but things didn't end up the way that you expected them to, or life took a turn, or something crazy happened, and you ended up in a space that you never really wanted to end up in. And it happens. Life happens. Like nobody is exempt from life. Nobody. But it's our resilience to get back up again. It makes us drive and it gives us that grit. But stuff happens. Dissatisfaction with relationships, whether it's coping with a sugar who has special needs. You and husband have this magical wedding, and then you have this sugar and you find out that there's a degenerative disease, or milestones are not met, or they're not talking, or behaviors are ensuing, or now you're spending most of your time in the hospital, or this or that. Like life goes back to life, happens. And then you're tired, maybe not unhappy, but tired. I do a lot of reading on like how parents are coping. And I ask a lot of times, with the world changers, like, how are you coping? They're not necessarily, or you're not necessarily unhappy, just maybe a little bit more tired, or becoming unhappy because of the fatigue, always tired. That can have a psychological impact on how you relate to the world and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about things about you. And it can drive the decision-making process. And then if there's not enough support from family members, or even from a spouse, or there's judgment, or there's not enough access to care, or not enough support in the schools, like all of these things are real things that can build up and end up in that pressure cooker, right? And so not only was life happening before, but now you have another added component that's now dominating your life and taking over to the point of where it almost feels like, how am I even going to get back to myself? And do I even know what that is? And so again, if we end up in this space where all these things are going on, but then we need an out or an outlet, that pressure builds up and we feel like, oh my gosh, I need to do something to at least kind of feel better. I only live once, so let me do this X. But it could probably be the worst X of your life. So be careful with that, world changers. Be careful with that. That's why I encourage community and personal dissatisfaction with the past. Now, world changers, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm a speech therapist, but that is not the same as a professional therapist. Friends are friends for a reason. Spouses are spouses for a reason. But if there are hidden things that need to be dealt with from the past, we can't change the past. But we could definitely look towards the future. But if the past is holding up the future, then it's time to get a listening ear to help out, to help work through those things, to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position to where we're looking for this outlet. But again, we still have to live with ourselves no matter where we go. And once we do this X, whatever it is, right? Whatever drives us to that impulsive decision we make, when the dust settles, we're still left with ourselves because we're insensitive, we're out of tune with our own personal needs. And so world changers, I know that this stuff is super heavy, and this has nothing to do with sugar in one sense. This has to do with your own self-care, your own personal self-care. But world changers, let me tell you something. If you are tooled up and you are healthy and in the balance, then how much greater will you then be for my little sugars out there? Oh my gosh. And so I care about your self-care and your well-being as much as I care about theirs. So that's why we're having this conversation today. And it's okay, right? Because we've all been here, and I'm here to walk us through it and say, I've even been there. And I've even had to do some auditing. I constantly do auditing on myself to make sure that I'm not doing that. I only live once, so I'm just going to make this decision. And it might not be the best decision in the moment, but I'm going to do it because it looks right, feels right, smells right to me right now. But I didn't necessarily think it out. But as a result, what we accidentally model are decisions based on, I earned what I'm doing. Right? I earned that because I work hard, and I might be working hard at something that I don't love. And so now I'm doing whatever I need to make me feel better because I earned that. Right? Or I don't have time for that. Now all of a sudden it's a dismissive attitude, right? I worked all week doing blank. I don't have time for this. I don't have 5 to 7 minutes for play. I don't have time for no story. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time. I'm going to wait and see. I know sugar's not meeting their stuff, but maybe they'll do it later. This is real stuff, world changers. And this is what's really happening. And we're being tricked and tricked and tricked into feeling like, well, if I buy this or I do that or I give sugar this toy or if I do this, then I don't have to deal with that. I don't have time for that because now I could just tool you up, little sugar, with some gifts. And if I give you this tablet, well, look, I spent all this money on this tablet. And so that, you should understand, means that I don't have time for time together, but I have time to buy this thing that sugar doesn't even understand the value of. Sugar has no clue the value of an iPad or a smartphone or $100 pair of shoes. They don't even know the value of what it feels like to make $100. I remember my first $100 check. I worked hard for it in high school. And so if we're giving sugars these things that have this big value because we're trying to meet this gap, this own personal gap, right? If we're dissatisfied with own personal things and we're feeling like, well, if I only live once and I'm doing this stuff, but it's not necessarily personally fulfilling for me, but I work hard. And so I'm going to be able to give my sugar these things, but you miss out on the most important element, world changer. You are the greatest gift that they have. I mean to say, you are the greatest gift that they have. Your joy, the smile on your face, your time, your energy, your efforts. And you miss out on seeing those things that make sugar spark and that make sugar special. And it puts you in a position to where you're unable to nurture those things because you've lost touch with self. We've all been there. We're all at some point. And life is so funny because we have to constantly check in with self to ensure that we're pushing to our own personal purpose to make sure that we're navigating and guiding sugar into theirs. So if we're constantly seeking out that personal gratification, if we're constantly seeking out those things that may hold some kind of societal value, but no kind of personal gain, then we're playing a dangerous game with ourselves. And so, world changer, I want you to ask yourself, am I in tune to my own personal needs? Am I taking time for myself on a frequent basis? Self-care, not YOLO, making these impulsive decisions. I want you to keep in the forefront of your mind, you do only live once. And caring for your one and only self is crucial because how you care for yourself is what you're modeling for sugar. And that's what they're going to pick up. They're not going to pick up your words. They're going to pick up what you're doing. Am I living out the things that I love? And not all day. That can even get a little bit narcissistic if you're not careful, right? It can get crazy. Yes, live out the things that you love, the stuff that you have a passion towards doing. I have a passion towards parent-child relationships. I love parent-child relationships, and I love public speaking. I love doing this stuff. Now, I don't love doing it 24 hours a day. I don't know anybody who loves doing the thing they love 24 hours a day. Strike a balance. Am I living that thing out? How am I living that thing out? If I've moved away from it, how can I get myself closer to it? What's that one thing in my life that I could change right now, this minute? Like if there was one thing in your life, world changer, that you could like drop kick, get rid of, boot it out your front door and never see it again. What is that thing? Think about that. Because that might be the very thing that you need to get rid of in order to push you closer to who you are. Are you paying attention to the things that sugar loves? You know I'm going to bring my sugars into it. I love my little sugars. And their purpose matters so much. And what they do in this world matters so much. What is sugar gravitating to? Am I sensitive to what they do, what they like, what they need, how they communicate? What am I doing with sugar? And finally, am I satisfied with Sugar and I's relationship? I'm going to pause a little bit there. Because that's a heavy one. Because sometimes we live so much that we don't take the time to think about, I'm just raising this child versus am I developing a relationship with this child? My words matter. My thoughts matter. Their ideas matter. It matters so much so. Or am I just imposing myself on them to be ahead, to do all of these things, to keep up, putting the pressure on them to keep up, to do this, to be ahead, to be faster, to meet this goal, to meet this thing, to do this, to do. Or am I nurturing a relationship to where I can hear from them and they can hear from me, and we have this beautiful symbiotic thing that works most of the time until sugar starts acting like sugar, and then you got to get them with lots of love and guide them. It's a fun time. So, world changer, I do want you guys to embrace the idea that I only live once, and I make the best of each day that I have with the things and the people that I love the most. And I should probably move in the direction of identifying those areas that make me unique, proud, and joyful. I want you to insert your name there, world changer. You only live once. Make the best of it. Do those things that make you unique, proud, and joyful. You only have one time, world changer, to model this behavior. What we model, that's what our sugars will pick up. What we do, that's what they're going to do. Life is too short to chase after stuff that you can't take with you, that's not tangible, or to take these mindsets that foster and nurture the wrong thing. Relationships over stuff, character, how we treat the world around us, how we even treat ourselves. So, world changers, I want you to take the time to just figure out what matters, move in that direction. I encourage you to take the next step and be sensitive to yourself. So in return, you can tune in to Sugar's personal needs. And that's all I have for today. But I don't want to leave you guys without a tool that'll help you with this process. So if you haven't done so already, go to my website, www.I'veGotThisKid.com. Marcel's going to have a heart attack. He hates when I say www. So this is for you, Marcel. If you visit my website, I'veGotThisKid.com, under the growth section, you will find my free ebook, Self-Care, Maintaining a Healthy You. Because world changers, I am a firm believer that you need to be taking care of yourself and being healthy for yourself before you can be healthy for anyone else. In this book, we'll talk a little bit about me, but more so giving you practical tips and things that you can do to ensure that you're caring for yourself, you're advocating for yourself, and just thinking about what can I do to be a little bit more in tune and make sure that I'm a little bit more balanced. Oh, and the book is free. The ebook is free. It is completely free. Join the interest list. Don't forget, join the interest list too. Also on the same website, I'veGotThisKid.com. under the grow section, because guess what? There is an interest list for the much anticipated book I wrote. Watch Me, Connecting to Your Sugar Through Play. Oh my gosh, this book was written over a few years ago, and I've just been playing with it and playing with it and playing with it and doing stuff to it and tweaking it and just saying, I want this to be perfect for my world changers out there, because y'all know I don't just do anything or put anything out there. I'd rather do nothing than put something out there just to be promoting, to be doing anything. I don't roll like that. But this book is an easy, practical guide to teach you how to connect, grow, and play with your sugar. And guess what? It is not an encyclopedia. We are busy. We ain't got time for encyclopedias. We got time for sit down for a good hour, right? and get like, what do I need to do? That's what this book is. It also has a bunch of strategies, guides, and tips. There is a book lending library list. There is all kinds of lending library lists in there. There's milestones in there. Everything that you need to know that we talk about on this show. Well, some of that stuff's in there, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there too. But remember, world changers, this book is going to tool you up. So please join the interest list. And finally, hey, I put my words into action. I don't mess around, world changers. When I say that I had to do some auditing, I had to do some serious auditing. And I realized how much I love this space with you guys. So I'm going to put more energy and more effort and more time into this show because I love this show. And so just continue to expect the sameness with maybe some newness going on, right? So with all that being said, I have a Patreon account. It is up and running. And while I make these life transitions, I would love for you to join the community. There's different tier levels. I believe it starts at $3 and goes up from there. You can even get free time with me. And it's through your generous giving that I can continue to keep this party going with you all, my favorite people. So world changers, keep sending in those questions. Keep sending in those thoughts and those shout outs. We are genuinely better together. And join us next week where we will have Dr. Tiffany Blakes and Kimberly Graves. And we are going to be discussing, is teaching YOLO impacting how I manage my daily routine? Whoa! I cannot wait to see you world changers there. Until the next time, y'all, take care.